Hi everyone, it's Margaret here with 60 and Me. Well, sit down, grab a cup of tea or coffee, and we're going to talk about the recession. We're going to talk about how to budget during a recession. This is something that I know is on the minds of so many people, and I want to do just a chat to try to come up with some ideas to share with each other how we're coping. It's not something that's new to us as older women. We went through the 2008 situation, and I know a lot of people, including myself, were very affected by it. But this recession that we're going through right now is it's combined with so many other things going on in the world that it's just not a very comfortable situation, but we can do this. Now, Lyle Solomon, one of our bloggers, wrote this article, How to Budget Well to Beat the Recession. And I'm going to just pull on some of the things that they talked about and maybe give some suggestions. And then I would like you to share. Genuinely, this is a time, if there was going to be one article to write comments underneath, this is it, because we've all got something to share and it's important. But let's just go back to the basics. What is a recession? Well, technically, it's a drop in economic activity. It's, 2 consecutive quarters of negative GDP, gross domestic product. And it lasts more than a few months. I mean, the projections are this one's going to last for at least another year. I know that there are certain places in the world that are much more affected than others, but it's just a tumultuous time. It's a very turbulent time, and we are dealing with it as best that we can. So that's a technical description of what a recession is. It's just basically a drop in economic activity. But what does it mean in real life? Well, it means that things start to cost more. Everything is going up in price. I'm actually incredibly surprised. Even here in Switzerland, it was already expensive, but now it's even significantly more. I mean, coffee has gone from like three francs a cup to 5, like literally almost appears overnight. But there we are. So, and I'm sure, this is not going to be a video like, that I'm poor me or poor you. This is just practical stuff, how we can get on with this. So things cost more, businesses fail, unemployment increases. So it's like a perfect storm, because all those things together create really difficult situations. And it's scary. It's scary for everyone, but there are some things that I think we can do to not just survive, but also to thrive. And most people are prioritizing and budgeting as best they can. And maybe a few of these ideas will give you some suggestions, things you can do. Now, there are many, many cool women and men right now doing some videos on different channels talking about the practicalities of living in a recession. And they're going out into shops and they're finding, really inexpensive items and, just doing practical, how to work together to share resources, all that kind of thing. But these are going to be just a list of things that Lyle came up with, and I want to just go through them one at a time. The first thing is, obvious one, cut back on unnecessary expenses. Identify the areas where you can reduce spending, such as dining out, coffee, entertainment, subscriptions. Subscriptions is a big one. During the times when we just were, sailing along, we signed up for 2 or 3, even more online streaming services. Do you really need that Prime coverage on Amazon anymore? There are so many subscriptions, and there's so many cool new apps and technologies that we want to try. We sign up for them for a trial, and then we forget, and then we end up having to pay the subscription. How many times does that happen? But subscriptions are really, really challenging. So cut back on unnecessary expenses. And I've got a few specific things I want to talk to you about in terms of what we buy during this time. But right now, let's just focus on unnecessary expenses, things that we definitely can do without. Save money, even a small amount. Even if you can put like $10 a week aside, that's going to be $520 by the end of the year. Just do what you can, put aside a small amount of money, and if you can, invest. Now, I know that investing in recession is challenging because you need the money. You want to be putting it aside, and the market has not been that stable the last few months, particularly. But things are picking up, and it's a great place to put your money if you have time, if you feel like you have time. And I think that we always do this as we're older. I certainly fall into this. Well, I'm 74 years old. I haven't got time. And you start to panic on this time thing. And it's like, you do have time. You have time. You're going to be here maybe longer than you think. Anyway, consider downsizing. You can sell some things. There's lots of services now online. If you've got clothes, you've got Poshmark, you've got Vinted, you've got, of course, all the Etsy's and those types of shops. But there's places you can sell your things. But downsizing in general, I think, makes you feel more focused on, like, one specific area that you don't need anymore. How much you spend in general, make a list, have a plan. Excuse me, I'm gonna have a drink. Am I the only one that feels like stressed when I talk about money? I mean, I genuinely do. It's, anyway, just be aware of how much you spend. The next thing, of course, is to prioritize your essential things. You've got to pay your rent, you've got to pay for heating, you've got to pay for healthcare. I mean, and food. I mean, those are the 4 things you just simply have to have. But there's within those categories and those boundaries, you can do some things. Another thing is and we're going to go into more detail in a second about specifics, but another thing you can do is pay off debt. The more that you're paying high interest rates and you're paying insurance and things like that, try to cut back on your debt. One thing I've written about this before, but it's how I got out of significant debt that I was in, 15 years ago, and that was to arrange payment plans. Everybody is in this situation, and the people that you call up at these businesses, they're human beings too, and they know what you're going through because they're going through it. So talk about payment plans. If you find your like your phone, for example, or your internet is going up, just call them and say, look, I just noticed that my bill is going up dramatically. Is there any offers you've got? Anything that I can do to reduce this cost? You'll be surprised. They want to keep you because they're suffering and struggling too. The economy of businesses is suffering. So definitely do that. Internet, car insurance, those are things where you can just call them and say, hey, is there anything I can do to reduce the amount of this bill? Cut out expenses. I just mentioned that subscriptions. Change your grocery shopping plan. Now, this is where a lot of people are doing some fun, sort of how to make meals for £1 a day or $2 a day, and coming up with some really clever ideas. For example, not to use your oven too much. Like, if you're going to use your oven, put a lot in the oven while you're cooking batches. Have a plan. Have a meal plan, and buy generic products rather than the ones that are brand, because they're paying, they've got to keep their business going too. Spend less for a little time. Well, I mean, the suggestions that Lal makes, like, don't go on holiday this year. I don't know. I know that's a very practical thing and especially a necessity for some people. But if you can just take a little trip, just a day, or just go somewhere, or just have a spa treatment, just something, I think it's really, really important. But this next one's a big one for me. Stop buying small things. Okay, I said to myself, Margaret, you don't need to buy any more makeup. No more luxury makeup. And then something comes along that I really, really, really would like to try. And it's like, no. So what do? I go onto another website, which is like low cost makeup. And I spend $20 on 5 or 6 things that are going to come, and I'll wear some of them, and I could have just bought the $20 thing that I wanted, but, or maybe whatever. You get the idea. Small things add up. If you spend $10 5 times a month, you spend over $100. Another thing is to earn more money, go back to work. I know that sounds harsh, but go and work. Do anything. I would work anywhere if I didn't have any money, and just do what you have to do. Go back to work or start a side hustle. You've got Etsy. You've got all kinds of shops where you can sell things. And just go and make some extra income. That's really, really important. Build an emergency fund. I mean, if you haven't got that already, even at the expense of having to go and work out a payment plan with one of your debts so that you can have an emergency plan, do that. Okay, now I've got a few minutes left here on this video because I don't want to go too long, because I'm not an expert on the agencies and the groups that you can go to for help, but I did do a bit of research and wanted to share those with you. There are some in the States, some federal programs. There's one called SNAP, which is a federal program that helps food expenses for low-income individuals and businesses, or families, SNAP. Maybe you know about this one. Tell me if there's any limitations I'm not seeing. There's one called Low Income Home Energy Assistance. Is that? Yeah, that's the States as well. HEAP. HEAP. Medicaid, I think, is in the States. In Canada, we've got the Food Banks of Canada, we've got Canada Health Act, I think, which protects low-income families. And then there's also the Ontario, and I'm sure this goes across the country, Ontario Energy Support Program, so people that are dealing with heating issues. And I know in the UK right now, this is a big deal. This is like, you know, heating is going up like, I don't know how many percent, like 300%. In the UK, there are a couple, if anybody's watching here from the UK, just help us out with some new ones. But there's the Trussell Trust, which is a network of food banks. And then also the Warm Home Discount Scheme. And I think this, again, is just these plans to help with heating. There are people that aren't able to eat and heat. And that's a ridiculous, sad, and horrible situation. But, you know, people are helping each other. But the conclusion to all of this is work to support each other. Stand by one another. If you're in a community where, or in an area where you can share meals, you know, one person can make a meal, everyone can share it, and you know, just hand it. I mean, not necessarily you could eat together, that'd be fine too. But you know, just make a big crock pot of food and share it with people that you know don't have that much or are needing some food. You know, I mean, I know that for example, there's warm spots now in different countries. I know in the UK, we're at like libraries and community centers where you can go. This is the time we come together, guys. This is the time when we reach out to help our friends that are in need. We don't judge. We don't, you know, we just know that if they, you know, there but the grace of God go I. This is time to help each other. And if you have got anything to spare, please do. But anyway, I hope this has been helpful. I feel like I've rushed through it, how to you know, sort of beat the recession. And there's another 10 minutes I could do on different ideas. But please, if that's been helpful, please let me know. Just like the video, leave a comment. If you are doing anything that you think other people would be inspired to do, and please subscribe here to the channel if you haven't already. Know that you are loved and respected, and I care about each and every one of you, and I hope that you're all doing okay. But we're going to get through this like we've got through every other challenge in our lives. We'll get through this recession, but we are the strong women who can help others through our own experience and our own lessons that we've learned. So let's be out there for everybody, for ourselves as well. Okay? Take really good care, everybody. Lots of love.